Thanks for joining us for this episode of Colorado Conversations. I'm Andrea Henderson, FOX31 morning anchor, and I'm joined by John Leonardi all the way from Crested Butte. So thanks for joining us, making that drive here to talk to us today.
Yeah, pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So let's talk about, so you are the owner and the chef of Soupçon, which is a restaurant there in Crested Butte. So let's just talk a little bit about your restaurant first and foremost.
Please. So Soupçon's been around for over 50 years. It's got a ton of history. I'm the 7th owner, I believe.
Oh, wow.
And I actually started working there in 2011 as a sous chef and worked there forever. And then I actually had the opportunity to buy in 2019.
Oh, cool. So you've been the owner now for 7 years, about.
Correct, going on that.
Awesome. So just tell people who aren't familiar with Soupçon, maybe have never been to Crested Butte before, just tell us a little bit about the restaurant. Like, what's the vibe? What can people expect?
It's super intimate. We have 9 tables.
Oh,
we
wow.
do 2 nightly seatings at 5:30 and 7:45 at Soupçon, and yeah, you just really get taken care of. It has the size capacity to feel like you're dining in a friend's house.
Oh, wow. I mean, only 9 tables. I would imagine that getting a reservation probably a little bit difficult.
You think ahead a little bit, especially during the busy times, for sure. So make it a part of your plan when you're visiting Crested Butte.
Awesome. So what's the menu like? I was looking at your website. I looked at the menu. It looks delicious, by the way. But it seems like local is a huge thing for you.
Absolutely. The focus is always on the freshest, the peak, and then also supporting the local farmers that work so hard. And their moment to shine is so small. So we really try to attack the menu where we are looking at what's available now and what's fresh and what can we put on the menu. Definitely bound with French technique that I learned in school, and this kind of my experience with cooking.
Let's talk about some of the menu items then. So what's some of your specialties?
So, you know, we always have like 6 apps, 6 entrees, bound with French technique for sure. We'll always have like a beef tartare, and then some sort of soup highlighting the freshest, and salad, and always bringing a seafood, a vegetarian option. Really try to hit with a small menu. Just something that anyone could find at least 1 or 2 things that they love.
And with a menu small like that, typically I found at restaurants that are like that, everything is good on the menu because there's so much that's put into those particular items. Not to say like a big menu, you know, the stuff's not gonna be good, but obviously with a smaller menu, everything's very intentional.
Intentional is the word. We definitely put a lot of love into creating the menus, procuring the ingredients, and then making everything. You know, something like bread on a large scale we won't make, but like everything on the menu we make in-house or transform, if you will. It'll come in from the farm, and then we put our touch on it. You know, it's definitely grounded in French technique.
So the name is Soupçon. Is there soup on the menu?
We always have a soup.
Okay.
And then Soupçon.
Soupçon.
The C is soft, marked with the D.
Look at me, I'm like saying, okay, that makes sense. Soupçon. So is that French?
That is French, and there's a bunch of different interpretations of how it like translates, but mystery, that little bit extra. And again, I inherited the name of the restaurant being 54 years old, but we just try to keep pushing the boundaries and doing the best that we can.
So the restaurant, I know you've owned it for 7 years now, but it's been around, like you mentioned, for 50 years. Has the tradition or like the vibe of the restaurant, has that remained, or has it changed over the years with different owners?
I think it's always been categorized as like the high end, like a nicer, dining experience with the intimacy and the size. We most definitely have our own touch to it. I have heard stories from one of the old owners back in the 70s that they had, tie-dye vibes and such going on.
Interesting. As does the 70s.
Right. And so we have our kind of, what I do now is what is inherited through Jason, my old boss and mentor, white tablecloth, perfectly plossed tables, sequence of service, steps of service, and that's kind of. But it's always, I think, been the dining experience that is memorable, that you look to celebrate a special occasion.
Yeah. So it's carried that reputation over the years.
That's my goal, for sure.
So is the menu something with just few items on it? Like you said, it's a smaller menu, and you have a different soup. Is it a menu that's ever evolving? Like you said, it's kind of based on what ingredients, what's fresh right now. So you change it up a lot?
We do.
Okay.
Especially in the summer, where, like right now, for presenting purposes, we have a strawberry gazpacho. The strawberry season is so small. So when we open, we'll have a different soup, but we have to stay on our toes about what the farmers have, what's going to be available in order to create. And the menu changes, sometimes daily, just on what we can get.
That's awesome. So you never really know, going in, you can never really know what's going to be on the menu, but I'm sure you can anticipate it's going to be good.
Absolutely.
And fresh.
Yes, fresh. And then, definitely just highlighting what's at its peak.
So what took you to Crested Butte? We were talking. We're both Ohioans. Both came from Ohio. What got you out to Crested Butte? Because if you haven't been to Crested Butte, it's several hours from Denver. I don't know. Is the closest airport Denver?
Gunnison.
Gunnison. Okay.
There's an airport in Gunnison.
A smaller airport. So what took you to Crested Butte?
So I did culinary school up at the Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park, New York. And then after graduation there, I went down to North Carolina, a little island called Ocracoke.
Oh.
Kind of to just decompress from school. It was intense training. It's only food, but there was high standards and a lot of intensity with the schooling. Afterwards, I wanted to kind of take a break and just.
I imagine like chef school is. I don't know if it's like this, like the show. What's his name? Who yells at everyone?
The Gordon Ramsay?
Yes. I'm like, is it like that? That's how I imagine it would be. And if it's anything like that, then yeah, I understand why you needed to decompress a bit.
I think that era has passed, but that was definitely a little bit before my time. But it was just a lot of deadlines. You had to be on time. You had to be clean shaven.
Yeah.
You had to be perfectly pressed. And you had to be on time. If you were late, you got sent home.
Oh, wow.
So it was just, a few years of that, of intensity. I needed a little break.
Gotcha. So then you went to the Carolinas. And then after that, did you make your way to Colorado?
That's how I found my way to Colorado. We actually got hit with a hurricane down there. And if you didn't have permanent residence, you had to leave just for supplies and all that. And I was suggested, a friend of mine there, like, if you like it here, you'll love it in Crested Butte. You should. Okay. And I've never heard of it. I had never been to Denver at that point in my life, and I packed a bag, one-way flight to Denver, Greyhound to Crested Butte, or Gunnison, and then hitchhiked up to Crested Butte from Gunnison.
Oh my gosh!
And that was in 2011, and then that's kind of where the story starts in Crested Butte.
So you bought a one-way ticket in 2011, and 15 years later, you've never looked back.
Yes.
What's for people who haven't been to Crested Butte yet, because obviously, you have to plan to go there. What's the restaurant scene like there?
There's a lot of people doing great things. We have a lot of new restaurants now as well, some old restaurants still hanging around. And the restaurant scene is thriving in the mountains.
So I've heard Crested Butte is such a beautiful little town. What can people expect when they just go?
Obviously, the beauty of the natural beauty of the town. Also, very unique. World-class mountain biking, excellent skiing in the winters, hiking, camping, wildflower, walking around to visit the wildflowers. Yes.
Okay, so we have to talk about that because that's a big thing in Crested Butte is the wildflowers. And you have this festival every year and that's coming up. So I want to take a quick break. When we come back though, we're going to talk about that and all the events surrounding that festival. Welcome back here. I'm joined by John Leonardi, and we're talking about Crested Butte, and we're talking about wildflowers. The season getting underway might be a little bit early, but by summer, the wildflowers there are just going to be popping in Crested Butte.
Correct.
And we have some of them here today.
Right in front of us here. These are from Thistle Whistle Farms. Some beautiful sprouts of early herbs. We have some cilantro blooms. Here we have some tarragon, and we have some sage blossoms, and they all are very aromatic and very, very tasty as well.
And that's what I was going to say. So these, they look cute, they look pretty in the vase, but you can also eat them.
You can.
Correct.
You can.
And we're talking about Crested Butte and wildflowers, but you're from Soupçon, which is a nice restaurant in town. And you use these ingredients in your dishes as well, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll infuse some of the tarragon leaves while we're making our creme fraiche, and then how better to garnish with beautiful little tarragon blossom.
Very cute. And we have a couple other. So what are some of these other
We have
flowers
some
that we have?
pea here,
Okay.
and we have some. Where are those? And some mustard. These little yellow
Mustard
ones.
seed?
Yeah, it will become mustard seed.
Okay, cool.
And then where else are we here?
And it's funny because you were saying you typically work with the leaves, so to see the flowers blooming, it kind of throws you off a little bit because you're like, I don't typically see that part of it.
You don't see that when you order tarragon. You just get the green stem, so that's super identifiable for me. And then the sage, obviously here.
Yeah. So these are edible?
These are all edible. Absolutely.
Should we eat one?
We should eat one. Which one do you like?
I don't know. You tell me. Which one's the best?
Well, I think they're all unique in their own way.
Okay.
Like the mustard will have a little more of a bitter edge to it.
Okay.
I would recommend, let's go cilantro to start. Right
Okay,
here.
I like cilantro. Some people are weird about cilantro.
Yeah, they get like the soap.
Yeah, the soap.
The soap taste.
Okay, do I just eat it?
Just eat it.
Okay. Oh, it's really good. Tastes like cilantro. Imagine that.
It really,
It's really good.
yeah, very,
Cool.
very good.
So, this is the definition of fresh ingredients. And the Wildflower Festival, it's coming up in July in Crested Butte. But at Soupçon, I feel like I have fancy every time I say that. You're going to be integrating some of these, obviously the flowers, and to some of the dishes.
Absolutely.
Can you talk about that? Do you have a special menu that's a little bit curated for the wildflowers?
It's going to run through, we open on June 19th.
Okay.
And then the Wildflower Festival runs July 10th through July 19th. And we're definitely going to focus wildflowers, edible flowers throughout our menu until, the mid-August when it starts slowing down. But the festival is also celebrating its 40th year, which is a really, really special thing. Being Crested Butte, the wildflower capital of Colorado, some would say, and I think it's a great way to take people from the outside, put that landscape on the plate, and maybe the ones that can't get up and hike to see some of these fleeting blooms, to experience the wildflowers and the landscape of that on their plates.
So your restaurant, will the menu change, or maybe some portions of the menu based on what's in bloom? Because I imagine some flowers, some plants bloom early, some maybe bloom later in the summer. So it will kind of has to change, right?
Absolutely. And some of the stuff we won't even get really to feature unless we maybe dry some petals or do some sort of preservation method. There are things that we miss seasonality-wise in the mountains, but we will focus on what is peak and thriving, or if we took the opportunity to preserve.
And you said you opened June 19th. Was there a period where you were closed down?
Yes, with the seasonality, we closed down the last week of the ski hill, and that's kind of like what they call the mud season.
Yeah.
And everything kind of muds out. There's really not too much to do, so a lot of the businesses will shut down, and then we open back up once the wildflowers start blooming again.
Yeah. It gives everyone who is busy from the ski season and from the winter to get a little moment to decompress before it picks right back up for the summer season.
Yes.
So the Wildflower Festival, I know you opened June 19th, and you're going to be integrating different flowers and different stuff into the menu throughout the summer. But the specific festival, that's July 10th through the 19th. Can you just talk about what people can expect who've never been there for that time?
You'll just see peak peak season of these, beautiful flowers everywhere, starting down low earlier, and then as the season progresses, you'll get blooms up higher in the elevation. So just beautiful views, big landscapes of color.
Do you take it for granted, living there and seeing it year after year, or is it something that's just like always breathtaking?
I think it is always breathtaking.
Yeah.
When I moved there, it was the winter, and I loved skiing, and my intention was to leave.
Yeah.
And then I experienced the summer there, and it's like that was 15 going on 16 years ago. So yeah, I think I try not to take it for granted because it is so special and beautiful.
That's why I only ask because I lived by the beach for a little bit, and I wouldn't say I took it for granted, but then when you move away from it, you're like, man, that was really nice. So if you ever do move away, which maybe, stay there forever, which would be a beautiful place to live, but I'm sure you'll certainly miss it if you do. So people going to the festival, have you been able to enjoy the festival yourself? I guess what kind of things can people expect? Because I know there's all different activities that surround it.
I am in the restaurant. So I personally can't speak from experience of the festival, but celebrating its 40th year, there's stuff you got, I guess, take the leap of faith and come check it out. And I know you won't be disappointed.
What's the buzz around town during kind of this season, summer? I'm sure you overhear conversations when people come to the restaurant just about their experience.
It's just such a unique experience in Crested Butte. It's so small. I think it's 1,500 of yearly population, and that definitely swells with camping and tourism. And I think the people that are in Crested Butte look forward to it.
Yeah.
It's kind of how they keep the economy going and meet new people and show them what we're doing in the mountains.
I was gonna say, I imagine the local economy thrives off of the festival, the flowers. Absolutely. And especially coming off a season where the winter wasn't all that great. Do you think this is something that, especially, I'm sure a lot of these smaller towns are really looking forward to the summer season?
I think the summer is a little bit, you can plan for it more. Like if the snow doesn't snow, you're not really going to be skiing the extremes. Now, they did do a great job getting some of the terrain open, which was a groomed terrain that people still had a good time and still visited. And we didn't really have the extremes, the T-bars spinning and doing that. But I think the summer, everyone's looking forward to, for sure.
It's going to be nice. I'm already planning my trip in my mind. All right, we're going to take one more quick break, and we'll be right back.
Thank you.
Welcome back here. We're talking with John from Soupçon in Crested Butte, just talking about the amazing wildflower season that's coming up and some of the amazing dishes that you are going to have there, specifically integrating the wildflowers. So let's talk a little bit about it. I know you're saying sometimes it's hard to predict, what things are going to be available, what's going to be blooming and that sort of thing, but you were talking about this one dish that sounded really good.
We are definitely going for a laminated pasta dough to, slightly dehydrate the flour and then roll it into the dough, and then form a singular ricotta squash blossom stuffed raviolo with some grilled summer spring vegetables, a little bit of saffron infused marinara, something just really highlighting the floral components of everything.
And if you check out the restaurant this summer, that's the thing. It's ever evolving depending on what is fresh, because that's such a big part of your restaurant. And you were talking about some of the sources, local farmers, where you get your different products from, whether it's the flowers, you're talking about some of the cheese. So talk a little bit about that, because that's something it seems very important to the restaurant.
Yeah, it's very important to the restaurant. It's very important to the farmers as well. They definitely rely on our patronage. And we rely on them to work harmoniously. And we have Mark with Thistle Whistle and his whole team. And
that's where
all these flowers
all these
blooms
Amazing.
Came from his farm.
And he has cute goats.
He has very cute
pictures.
goats. And he has a great team as well.
Awesome.
And then we have Alex over at Iola Farms in Gunnison. It's kind of outside of Gunnison, but a little bit towards Lake City. And then we have on that same farm, Sundrop Floral. We'll be able to get some of these wildflowers that are sustainably grown so I'm not just out there foraging and picking through the landscapes.
You're like, this looks good.
Yeah, and then there's countless that we use, and then there's the farm runners that really help the entire state of Colorado, especially the mountains, get the freshest stuff from these farmers.
Is there like this ever there has to be, I'm imagining, constant communication between you, like, okay, what is going to be, because obviously you have to plan your menu, like what's going to be fresh next week, like what do we need to get, because to plan a menu and make something but also be so dependent on what is fresh, what's that like?
I think you really have to rely on the technique and be able to adapt quickly. They definitely always give me like a schedule, a map, if you will, of what will hypothetically be ready in these 2 weeks, in these 2 weeks. And then sometimes it's early, sometimes it's late, sometimes you get a hailstorm and you lose the lettuce. But they do such a great job, and they work tirelessly to make sure that we can get the freshest stuff on the table.
And when that's such a priority to the restaurant, making sure you are sourcing locally, getting fresh, you can't always predict. Like you said, I mean, this weather's been unpredictable. I know we got a freeze recently, which obviously impacted, some farms, and it's hard. You can't control Mother Nature.
Yeah, unfortunately, over in the Hotchkiss, Paonieri area, like cherries, apricots, peaches aren't going to happen this year. Yeah. But we still have to support our farmers and look forward to continuing to pay the bills with the CSA to make sure that we want to get those peaches next year. Yeah. Palisades, I think, still has 95% availability, so that's great news. But that freeze, you're at the mercy of Mother Nature.
And I think the fact that this season has been a little weird, unpredictable, all the more reason to support locals, support these local farmers who maybe need the help right now. Okay, so open up June 19th. Would you recommend people make reservations ahead of time?
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. Through our website, soupçoncb.com. And you can check out what we're doing and make your reservations through there.
Awesome. So check them out. Soupçon opening June 19th, and also check out Crested Butte Wildflower Season. That's coming up July 10th?
10th to the 19th, correct.
All right. Awesome. A lot of amazing things to check out this summer, and thank you so much, John, for joining us.
Thanks, Andrea.